More perspective now from someone with diplomatic experience. I spoke to former Canadian ambassador to China, Guy Saint-Jacques, a bit earlier. Have a listen to that conversation. Hi, Mr. Saint-Jacques. Good to see you as always.
Thank you for the invitation.
I appreciate you making the time. Would it surprise you, or does it surprise you, to learn of these allegations that China was targeting Michael Chong and his family?
I'm not surprised at all. This is part of the of typical Chinese behavior, and they have become more bold over time with the actions they are taking. And they do this with members of the Chinese diaspora. They do this with students, and they keep a watch on everyone. So in the case of the MPs, it's clear that they maintain tabs on what they do. You know, when I was ambassador and we had delegations of MPs, some were surprised to be thanked by Chinese officials for a vote that had taken place 20 years earlier. So in this case, you know, it's a tactic that is used quite often, and it's something that, you know, should have generated a reaction from the federal government.
And what do you mean by that? What reaction should it have generated?
Well, there are a couple of reactions that could have taken place. One obvious one would be, and this could still be done, would be for Minister Joly, for instance, to call in the Chinese ambassador, Cong Peiwu, and read him the Riot Act and tell him to stop all those interference measures, that otherwise there will be consequences. The other thing also, and the law allows the RCMP and CSIS itself to visit members of the Chinese diplomatic community and to warn them. And of course, if you know, we were to discover that Mr. Jia Wei has been involved in a regular pattern of interference activities, then we could expel him. But if we choose to do that, we have to expect that China will retaliate. But at the same time, you know, we have to start somewhere. We have to stop this behavior, because if we don't do it by remaining silent, we condone their bad behavior.
I believe you're talking about the diplomat that the Globe reports was involved in this Chinese diplomat living in Canada. You talk about the prospect of expelling the diplomat. Under what scenario do you think that would be warranted? Would it need to be not just allegations, but something more concrete, or what might prompt that?
Well, I'm sure that CSIS is maintaining its own files of the activities of Chinese diplomats, and we know that a good number of Chinese diplomats are in fact a member of the State Security Bureau. And on the basis of what we have seen on the leaks that have been reported by Global and by the Globe and Mail, we already know of the type of activities that they do. So in the case of these Chinese diplomat, I think his name is Jia Wei, I'm sure that CSIS could provide a list of things that he has been involved in. And I think it's for the government to look at this and to decide whether to expel him, or, as I said earlier, whether to call in the Chinese ambassador. But, you know, we have been complacent for way too long.
And when you characterize it as complacency, what informs that characterization? Why do you choose that word?
Well, it's obvious that there are a number of people at PCO, the Privy Consul Office, and among members of CSIS that have been very frustrated with the lack of action by the federal government. And that there have been reports for a long time. You know, when I was ambassador until 2016, I was aware of activities by Chinese diplomats to interfere in Canadian politics. We had a number of people who we knew were probably under influence of China. And since then, in fact, there have been a number of reports to confirm that China is more and more active. China takes advantage of the fact that we are an open society, that there are vulnerabilities in our political system. And so all this has been documented by CSIS. It has been reported, as we heard from the testimony of the Prime Minister, Chief of Staff, Katie Telford. She said that there were many briefings that were given to the Prime Minister. And so on that basis, I think it would have been normal to take action. But I'm surprised that with all the facts that we have heard, that nothing more has been done.
So just on that last point, Mr. Saint-Jacques, when you talk about the level of complacency or a lack of response, the government would contend we are doing a lot of things on foreign interference. We have set up committees to examine the integrity of the elections. We have a committee of parliamentarians sworn to secrecy who are also investigating the issue. Do you mean specifically the government's foreign policy posture toward China in that respect?
Yes, and as we know, most of the interference is done by China. The Prime Minister referred to the fact that there was this committee of parliamentarians on national security and intelligence that was created some years ago. In fact, they produced a very good report with a number of specific recommendations that went to the Prime Minister, and those were not implemented. And so when it comes to discuss this issue, we discuss at length, and it reminds me of what an American official told me once when I served in Washington. He said, "You Canadians like to talk, we act." And in this case, in fact, it's the reputation of Canada that it's at stake here. We have to show our allies that we take those issues seriously and that we finally start to take concrete actions to prevent interference and try to reduce it, if not to stop it.
Okay, Mr. Saint-Jacques, thank you very much. Appreciate your analysis tonight.
Thank you.